Thank you for joining us. And I see in our participant list a really nice, healthy group of Folloze customers, people we don't really, I don't know, as well as some of our customer success people. And my dream marketing team is also on this call. So let me start this session with a little bit of background on why we're actually here today. Adi Alani, who's also here, our VP of Customer Success. If you're our customer, you absolutely know Adi, right? She's in your business. Her team is in your business all the time. Adi and I have spent a lot of time with some of the most successful B2B brands, helping them make the transition to an ABX-driven demand generation model. And we have so many interesting conversations in the background about the challenges of transformation, what it takes to succeed, how to do it well. And we keep saying, gosh, we should record these conversations, or we should be having these conversations in a public forum with other companies that are going through the same journey. So we said, well, this is about 3.5 weeks ago, maybe now, Adi, and we said, well, we should just start a webinar and talk about all the things and really create a space for people to come together and air their journey challenges and get support and help. We're also joined today by one of our partner consulting firms, Infinite Edge Consulting, Deanna Paredes, who is managing partner there. We spent a lot of time, Deanna and team, on this idea of transformation and really how to accelerate that transformation. So today is the kickoff of a webinar series that we hope you'll follow and continue to join as we go through this process. Today is more high level about the transformation process, what it really takes to transform successfully. And then our subsequent program is going to be about the nitty-gritty details of the different components of this kind of business model. So let's get started. So first and foremost, hopefully you're creating a vision if you don't have a vision today, and we hope to help you really refine that vision as we go along in this conversation. We also want to talk about the top blockers. This is, there's so many things that get in the way of transformation. Between the three of us, we've kind of narrowed it down to a really finite set of things that we run into consistently. So what those blockers are, how to overcome them, and then how a way to develop a realistic change roadmap, some key milestones for you to look at so that you can walk away hopefully ready to create a plan or with the ability to strengthen that plan for yourself. So I'd like to have Adi and Deanna introduce themselves and talk about their role in this transformation process and why they're here with us today. So let's start with Adi.
Thank you, Mary, and I'm really excited to be here. Thanks everyone for joining us. Adi Alani, I'm leading the customer success organization at Folloze. I've been with Folloze for quite a few years now, almost OG at Folloze.
And OG to this transformation process, right?
Absolutely. Before that, I was actually a marketer, so I came to the customer success world of a MarTech company from hands-on experience in marketing, and I continue to work with customers on being really better marketers. When you buy technology, you have to also buy into the state of mind behind it, the goals behind it, the process behind it. And I'm seeing it all the time working with dozens of customers that it only starts with the purchase decision, but then there's a whole journey that requires a lot of change management in order to be successful with the new technology that you just bought into. So I'm really excited about this topic, very passionate about it. And I'll hand it over from here to Deanna.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Deanna Paredes. I am a managing partner and co-founder at Infinite Edge Consulting, which launched coming up on 5 years now, actually, believe it or not. My role over the past 20 years, I have been a marketing strategist, and I have rode the wave of change and transformation, starting in print media, going through the digital revolution, becoming an expert in integrated marketing and demand gen, and now again, riding the waves of change as we transform to ABX. So a big part of what we do right now at Infinite Edge is partnering with B2B companies on their transformations from a demand gen mindset to a fully digital driven ABX environment. And my team and I, we get in with these teams. We partner with all the different practitioners and work through the challenges of change management and setting up the organizational change that it takes to really move into a fully functional organizational wide ABX environment. So very excited to dive into some of that with y'all today.
Great. So we've got the transformation coming at it from a tech perspective, seeing the organizational requirements, and an organizational perspective where, tech is part of the model. So that's the kind of conversation we're really hoping to have today. So let's get going. So just setting up the case, it's very, very clear to anyone that's on this call and just about every B2B marketer today that running a full funnel marketing motion, which we call ABX, targeted accounts, targeted at buyers and individual buyers in those accounts, has an incredible benefit on everything from the way sales and marketing works together to, the relationships with buyers and engaging them and being competitive in those buying processes, to how our content is viewed, measured, and leveraged, and all the way through to the ROI of our programs, justifying what we're doing in marketing. And so we don't have to convince you of that. We just wanted to lay a little data out there. But what we really know is that it's really no longer viable to throw MQLs over the fence, but I can't tell you how many accounts we go into where MQL is still a critical metric. And, I just had a conversation with a CMO 2 days ago who just started a new role and was saying, hey, I came in, the team generated 29 million in MQL opportunities last year, and not one of them converted. Something's wrong, right? So that's a problem. And so the savvy B2B marketers today are taking full responsibility for the funnel. We want to be in charge of what happens to those buyers and how they navigate their journey, all the way from the top of funnel through to their relationship with the business ongoing after they become a customer. So what does that mean? That means demand generation and ABM are coming together. Forrester's talking about it. Gartner's talking about it. We're seeing it in our day-to-day lives. So demand gen is taking aspects of ABM, whether that be we're using our ABM platforms to drive targeted ad campaigns, or we're doing much more refined segmentation and personalization, but we're struggling to scale that. Or we've got more mature tools to customize experiences. On the ABM side, we're going from one-to-one to one-to-few to all of a sudden, hey, how do we scale this in our commercial environments or our mid-market and smaller enterprise accounts? It's not just for strategic accounts anymore. We need to add more resources and capabilities. Companies are going from a small ABM team that's part of the sales team to a very scaled global organization. And we see this in some of our biggest accounts like Cisco and SAP and companies like that, who this is an institute discipline. And then better tools and insights. So ABM practitioners are kind of we used to be the bottom feeders, right? So scrapping together what we had. First we had Bombora or Demandbase or Sixth Sense, but now we have tools for experience and engagement and for intent driving and to optimize our ability to personalize those experiences at scale. So when you bring those two disciplines together, you get a set of agile marketers who can meet buyers where they are, wherever they are in their journey and whatever they need. You have a unified set of tools. Demand Gen had their tools, ABM had their tools. Now it's a shared set of tools. And it's shared with sales as well. And then the ability to scale highly personalized, engagement-driven communication so you can always be in control. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means. So what we're talking about isn't just a discipline. It's not like, hey, pick advertising, pick demand gen, or pick brand or demand gen or ABM. It's a fused operating model that we're really talking about here. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Adi and have her talk a little bit about the operating model that we're seeing.
Thanks, Mary. It's for this new operating model to be successful and for us to perform within this operating model, we really need to change the way that we're thinking about it. And what are the main pillars that we need in order to be successful within this operating model? So we want to start with the agility because it's imperative to the success of this model. You want the people in your organization who are closest to the field, who are closest to the customer, who understand the customer best, to be agile, to be able to respond to signals coming from the market quickly. So you want to launch campaigns in days. You don't want to wait until a quarter passes and everything changes in the market as you know it in the pace that things are happening today. You also want to empower everyone in your team to be able to go to market quickly with the right message, with the right content to create engagement. And this is where we go over to the next pillar, which is engagement. We like to say that engagement is the new currency. And building on what Mary said earlier, we don't want to measure just MQLs. We don't want to measure conversions. There's a whole world there of engagement that is happening that we want to feed first with really personalized, really engaging digital experiences. We want them to be agile. So we want to be able to agilely create them, agilely get them to market. And we want to cover the entire life cycle. And then we want to take those insights from the engagement that is happening because we're not just looking at form fills, right? We want the whole picture. We want to understand what our audience is engaging with, what's interesting to them, what content they find engaging, what do we need to do more of, what do we need to do less of. And again, we want those insights to be available to the entire go-to. So, and if you're able to create the agility, the engagement, and use those insights, you really create a virtuous cycle that works very well for you and has amazing business results. And we'll actually go back to that throughout this webinar on how those three pillars are bringing you really good business results. So with that, let's look.
Yeah, I just want to pause here because this is so fundamental to the conversation, because we brought in agility into the conversation in ways that we haven't seen agility before, but we're seeing that notion of agility and the ability to create something very, very quickly that is going to have an impact on engagement, which is downstream drives these insights that have that, impact on agility. It's a way that, for years we've been looking for these kinds of techniques as marketers, but haven't really been able to kind of enable that or empower that because things have been so centralized, right? Things have been so controlled by a handful of marketers in, in a demand gen discipline or in an ABM discipline. And so we haven't had that ability to have that flexibility and scale.
Absolutely. So let's look at how this may look like from a roles and responsibilities perspective, from a platform perspective. We're going to show some screenshots and names of tools, but feel free to plug in the tool of your choice within this this visual. We want to start really with the buyer experience. In order for this to work, everyone in the organization needs to be oriented to the buyer for creating the best experience for them, creating the most engaging experience for them throughout the funnel. So, and personalize the experience to the buyer, to the stage that they're in. In order to do that, we need marketing to take over this aspect of creating the experience, building the audience, making sure that we're showing the right experience to the right audience. And again, tool of your choice on how you find intent, how you build those lists. But we want to make sure that we align those, that we align the buying stage with the experience, that we're not asking to form fill, for example, when the audience is completely cold or showing no intent signs. We want to make sure that we show the right content at the right stage with the right call to action. And then we'll get again to the insights later. But that's the power of marketing, is in launching those programs, being able to create those experiences. That's a lot of power and a lot of orchestration capability, making all those pieces work together. Now we're looking at our sales people, and we have our ADRs, SDRs, BDRs, however you want to call that team, and we want to make them more than just meeting schedulers, right? We want to make them, Mary called them engagement valets, and I really like this way of looking at our ADR team. They're in the front, they're the first ones, they're the first humans meeting the customer. We want them to offer that customer a really educational, engaging experience. And later in the funnel, we want our AEs we want to position them as educators. We want to position them as serving the customer with what they need. And they're all creating a very cohesive experience for the customer. So we're taking them back to an experience that is familiar, but is changing with what the buyer needs in the different stages of the cycle. All those engagement touch points are creating a lot of insights. And we want to make sure, again, back to our flywheel, we want to make sure that everyone in the go-to-market organization has access to those insights and also understands what to do with those insights. So we want to make them actionable. We don't want just a bunch of data points that we're not sure exactly what to do with. We want them to be very actionable. So for an ADR, for example, if they saw that someone is engaging with a specific piece of content, it helps them take the conversation forward and refer to that fact, use that, leverage it in their next outreach. And all right, Mary, back to you.
All right. So easier said than done, right?
Absolutely.
So we have laid out an ideal state here. I'm curious, and maybe you want to drop comments in the chat for those of us for those of you that are our guests, whether or not this aligns to the vision that you have for your strategy, your organization, how you're going to market. And you may have a slightly different vision. You may be addressing one component of your organization, but please feel free to share in the chat how you see the ideal state. But let's say we agree that some structure of some permutation of this is our ideal state. You're most likely here because you're struggling. It's hard to get there. You can't get somebody in your organization aligned, or, lots of different people doing things different ways, or you don't feel like you have enough, but it feels like it's a really hard process and struggle. This is where we bring in our organizational transformation expertise to help us, really dig into what the challenges are, where the barriers are, and what are some simple ways, maybe not so simple, but some practical ways to start your journey and to keep moving forward despite the blockers. So, Deanna, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Right. So, that's exactly what we're seeing too, right? So knowing what to do isn't the same as knowing how to do it. And that's what we're finding right now. We're digging in and partnering with different brands and different companies on their transformation. We're in the trenches with companies who are moving quickly, but a lot of times they want to move quickly and we find that they're struggling. And we're seeing really some common themes in terms of what it is that is impacting this journey. And they all kind of tend to ladder up to three things: people, processes, and tools. So some of the common blockers that we're seeing when it comes to people, a lot of mistrust and prejudice between marketers and sellers. We come in and we see, they'll say that they have marketing and sales alignment, and they really don't. We see that we're still seeing a lot of that transition just dropping off at the MQL. That leaves sales teams feeling, left without support beyond, the form fill, and, marketers feel overwhelmed with one-off requests that aren't connected. And so really need to build that trust between the two teams to form a true, healthy alignment between the teams. A lack of executive ownership. A lot of times we see teams really looking for one source of truth when it comes to leadership, and a breakdown between marketing leadership and sales leadership, also unable to kind of connect and form a unite leadership front. Inexperienced ABX practitioners. ABM doesn't mean what it meant 10 years ago. And so if your ABX practitioner is not keeping up with, the new wave of what that means and how to truly integrate a demand gen driven system into that, they're going to struggle. And then change management challenges. Of course, driving an organizational wide change is always going to be challenging. And something like this, we have to keep in mind, this is not just about the marketing team and marketing people. This is about an organizational wide change through marketing, through sales, customer success teams, and executive. We have to be able to drive that all the way through. And that can be very, very challenging when everyone is also sensitive about crossing lines. Then when we look at processes, one of the biggest things we see, conflicting metrics across the go-to-market team. Everyone needs to be pointed towards the same goals in the same direction, or it's all going to fall apart. And so when we see teams building their metrics and measuring them in silos, we see a lot of challenges here. The misalignment of sales and marketing operating models, and then a lack of strategy for targeting journey-based motions and personalization. When you don't know who you're targeting and how you're going to do it, and then again, have that alignment across the teams on how that comes together, it's going to be extremely challenging. And then tools is also a really important piece of this. And what we see a lot of times is everyone wants to focus on the strategy and the people alignment first, and we'll get to tools later. And I can't express enough how important tools are from the get-go. They are a really important piece to line your entire system around. So looking at the tools, it's important to know that technology strategy, if it's not buyer-centric, then it's not going to matter. Putting the tech in place, a lot of times we'll come up and we'll hear, oh, we have this tool, they have all the right tools, but they're not set up correctly. A lot of times this means that they're measuring what's happening, but they're not using those insights effectively to drive the campaign, to drive decisions, and to optimize. So a lot of times that's just a few tweaks, and you could really be getting a lot more out of your tech. And then finally, competing priorities for technology without clear ownership. So MOPS people just overwhelmed with requests for new tools and things, and just cannot get a straight priority line with everything lining up to the same priorities.
Right.
So what we do know, the way we're operating now is not going to get us where we need to be moving forward. So that's the number one mentality change that is imperative every time we go in and get started, is letting go of the way that's been done before. And it's time for new thinking.
Yeah. And it's almost like, this is the hardest part, right? This awakening of just letting go and being able to say, okay, I'm going to dive into the abyss and go for it. Because people are trying to say, well, let's just shift this model slightly or this model slightly. But where we see the biggest success right now is when there's an awakening at the CMO level and at the CRO level, that full scale change has to happen for this to be successful, and it has to involve the entire team. So let's get into that.
Awesome. Right. So, like we said, the big aha moment that we see most often with Folloze customers, our customers at Infinite Edge, and even customers who ultimately don't go forward and just stay stuck, what we see is they come to realize that this is more than just, dropping a new campaign. This is not building a new campaign and putting it out into the world. This is change management. This is organizational wide change management. And that feels hard. That feels very overwhelming. The most common thing I hear is, I don't know where to start. It can feel extremely overwhelming. And so very few companies really know how to go through that organizational wide change management process, especially when you need to cross departments, you need to cross leaderships and bring them together. But, the way we see it, again, all change management processes, they have 3 levers. Again, it comes back to people, processes, and tools. And, this is an example of what a roadmap might look like. It may vary based on, your company size and setup, but when we come in, we really try to come back down and put it into manageable chunks. Start by defining your vision, creating your plan. We usually recommend start with a pilot launch, start with a focused group that can put your vision into action and do a test to measure that and use those results to expand step by step and then organize it and expand it throughout your organization. And the way to come through this is, again, going through with your people, getting that sales and marketing alignment, addressing your skills gap, and then engaging the entire go-to-market organization through to through, bringing that all through into your processes as you develop your ABM strategy, an operating model that works through and recognizes, again, all the way through the organization, and really clearly defining your handoffs and making sure that those are interweaving throughout the process across the room. And then, of course, tools, assessing your tools for ABM, integrating your platforms, making sure you have the right platforms for what you need, and then testing and iterating from there.
We often have conversations with customers on what is the right place to start, as you mentioned, Deanna. We ask questions like, okay, what teams are most closely aligned already? Like what is your segment where marketing and sales are already working very well together? What is the segment where you'll see the quickest return? Which segment are your customers, for example, already pretty engaged and you can take it to the next level and show quick results?
Right, exactly. So some concrete steps that you can take right now. So our goal this morning is we're going to be sharing some examples and some framework tools that we'll be sharing also after the event that you can utilize as thought starters and to get started with your own program. So looking at, next right here, thinking about where to start. The most important thing is to align mentality around ABX is a team sport. And so you need to align your go-to-market team from top to bottom. And this means even more than just marketing and sales. This means pulling in marketers, all your sellers, your MOPs, your customer success teams, and getting everyone on the same page and interweaving throughout the process. Set up your team for collaboration right out the gate. Start with a team that's oriented around what you're doing and own what is their North Star and what is it they're going after. So 5 things that you want to do as you're getting started. First is create a set of shared metrics, revenue targets, attribution model. Again, this is all about killing the MQL. The MQL is dead. I'm going to say it once and for all. No more MQL handoffs, lack of follow-up on leads, interweaving them all together. Building the ICP and the target account list and the pilot plans together. And so, Adi, you and I, we were talking about this just the other day. Also,
right. I think that there's a way to do it together, and there's a way to do it together properly, right? You want marketing to bring in their expertise, and you want sales to bring in their expertise. Sometimes, we hear from customers, "How did you build your target account list?" And marketers will say, "Oh, we sat down with sales and we agreed on the account." But then the next question, okay, are those accounts showing any intent? Are they in market? Those are exactly the added values that marketing and marketing tools can bring in and look at building the target account list in a way that is smart and together.
Right. Absolutely. Great. And then that brings us to mapping the marketing motions and sales plays. And this is one that I'm very passionate about. We go in and again, they say, I met with sales, we got our plan, we're going to do all these things to get the lead form, and then sales got it from there. That is not marketing and sales alignment anymore. That is so important to stay interconnected throughout the process, all the way to purchase, and map your plays. Know what are the motions, what are the behaviors that are going to move marketing into action, to connect with sales and back. Who are the different pieces of the buying committee that are going to come in throughout this process, and what are the resources that marketing is going to apply to sales, and when is sales going to use it? Have those plays mapped. So critical. And then establish clear roles and responsibilities around the funnel, the customer journey, and all the processes. So again, this is an organizational wide change, and for a lot, that really means going back even, all the way to what your team today sees as their roles and responsibilities in this process, and rebuilding those in an interconnected way, and make sure that everyone has clarity around what their responsibility is and where their involvement is. And then engaging the customer success team, critical. A key source of the intel, it lives here. They connect with your customers every day. They hear and listen to your customers every day. Bring them into those regular touch points with marketing and sales. Use that feedback all the way around. I can't tell you how much I lean on a D all the time. She is so critical to my strategy. So I am poking her constantly for her input and insights all the way.
And we actually have here at Folloze a customer success marketing steering committee that meets once a month. And we have made so much headway in our precision and in our ability to scale what's really important to our customers by just having that connection, that 1 hour connection once a month, where we talk about the most critical things that are happening with our customers.
Absolutely. And for marketers, that means coming with a mindset of curiosity, coming with the questions, actively listening. I always say like a news reporter, it's my background, but coming in like a journalist and being ready to ask, curious questions and really learn from that.
Yep. Right.
All right. So step 1, align around a shared set of metrics. Critical. And, again, shared means marketing, sales, everyone involved in the same room, lining these out. So quantitative metrics that provide leading indicators of success across the entire go-to-market. So for us, when we are laying out our framework for this, again, these also ladder up to 3 kind of critical buckets for us: agility, engagement, and business outcomes. So looking at agility, we're asking ourselves here, how effectively can our teams meet the needs of all of our buyers? Engagement, where, when, how long, and how many buyers in our key accounts are engaging? What are they engaging with? And then business outcomes. Are our activities leading to an increase in pipeline size, velocity, and a greater share of wallet? So looking deeper into these. So this is an example of a shared metric detail framework, and we'll be sharing this out after the show this afternoon. But here we just have some starter questions to help guide your thinking and your conversations with your teams through these 3 buckets.
These are not your grandmother's metrics either.
No.
Really important in my mind. The shift came when we stopped measuring outcomes and we started measuring activity and actions along the way. That's how we got to a really predictable pipeline. It's too late. Once you've measured how much pipeline you got, it's too late. You've got to measure the activity and the impact all along the way to make sure that you really can trust your pipeline. So I go back to the example of the 29 million in MQLs, you stopped measuring engagement, you stopped measuring sales rep response time, you stopped measuring, the number of buyers that were engaged, or you didn't do that at all. So how did you know that those were viable and that they are actually moving through the pipeline? So these are critical.
Absolutely. So step 2, align around the buyer. Sounds simple and obvious, but you would be surprised. It's so critical to come in and make sure that everything we're doing is aligned around the most important buyers, the buyers that are going to be effective for your goals and your results. So create a collaborative environment around a shared vision for buyer centricity. So here, getting the team together and putting yourselves in that mindset around the buyer perspective. What does it take to engage our buyers today? And how do they buy? What is their response, their preference between the digital experience and the human experience? Collaboration, how can we jointly improve their experience? What are our individual roles and how are we going to work together on this? And then, of course, shared goals, always at the top of mind, making sure that all teams are pointing in the same direction and working towards shared goals. And so this is another example that we'll share out with you afterwards, but an example of a buyer journey that you can use to sort of orient your team. So when we go into workshops, we start here with the visual, and this visual will change over the course of the process to fit, your goals and needs at the end. But this really helps everyone to see what it is we're working towards in terms of the buyer's experience. And, as you'll see here, one of the most important things is it's more than one buyer always. Where do the different members of the committee come in? What are the sales stages? And what are the points between sales and marketing throughout the process that you'll use to later populate your campaigns and content and everything else? So example of some questions for kicking off your buyer journey workshop. So this is when we get everyone in the room and we align around kind of these three buckets around how do we become buyer centric. So this is what kind of customer are we trying to attract? What do we think it takes to win their business? Who is our target audience? How are we segmenting our ICP? What verticals are we focusing on? And then how do we serve them in the buying process? Who's involved and what is their role? Who's the champion? Who are the detractors? A key, really important thing we see missing all the time. And how do they buy? And so aligning around conversations around these three things to really start mapping out, what are the goals and how are we going to get there through the journey? And this is also an example we'll share out afterwards of some conversation starters that we'll share around these three topics that you can use with your teams to start mapping this out. All right. So let's go back for a minute to what Dee said in the beginning around the tech stack. One of the most common things we see when we come in and we look at the tech stack is they have the right tools, but they're set up in a super basic way, or they're not set up correctly, and you're not getting the best out of the capability of these tools. There's really critical connection points between each of these tools that if they're not active or they're not set up, they're not being leveraged right, and you're just leaving opportunity on the table that could be a lot more effective, a lot of times with just a few tweaks. A lot of this, again, comes back to getting away from measuring just the business outcome or dropping off at the MQL. It's going back and using all of these different points to measure activity. Data is not used to measure of something how we work. Data is a tool to navigate what is happening and inform the actions of the team and what you're going to do next, and also how to improve and optimize your results.
Quick word on this one, and we also have here in the audience different size companies, and some companies it will be easier because my head of MOPS is a Slack message away, and I can ask and get something done really quickly. Some companies it will be very, very complicated, and there will be multiple systems involved, many more than we can show here on the slide. And I think when universe is so complicated, one of the things that we can start from is go back to your slide about the shared metrics and see, okay, how can we start creating visibility to those leading indicator? I want to know what's happening so I can predict what's going to happen down the funnel. And that's a really good place to start and ask questions.
Right. Absolutely. And, another important piece of that, when we come in with the tech assessment and help building the tech plan, that piece of it, sometimes it goes beyond just your ABX goals, right? Because the MOPS person is taking requests and prioritizing from everybody. So it is a matter of looking at the full organization, get everyone aligned on what is the priority. And if this is the priority, getting the to-do list aligned accordingly across the organization. So why is the tech piece so important from the upfront? The way we look at it, it's because agility and engagement is what equals your outcomes. And agility engagement is driven by the behavioral insights that we get from the data, only if the data is being collected, measured, and used correctly. That means pulling insights from your data to inform the actions that you take with your prospects and continually optimizing. So looking at those behaviors and really knowing what to do with them and what that means for your next steps within your campaign.
Which means every touch point has to be connected, right?
Step 3, when thinking about your data integration assessment, again, looking at these buckets, agility, engagement, and your business outcomes. Agility, how fast can we launch and respond? Engagement, this is about, are we able to measure, how much, how long, and really utilize those insights to drive our actions? And then outcomes, how much pipeline did our activities deliver for us? So this is an example, actually, Dee, we built this model with you recently when we were building a pilot model for a similar program. Do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to acknowledge, I know we have, people in the audience that are in different stages on their own ABX journey, and some of them maybe already started and have good programs going, and some of them are asking themselves like, okay, where do I start? And I think one of the most important thing, again, is going back to the KPIs. Whatever we do, we want to make sure that we measure it and that we're asking the right questions and measuring the right things. So if you have a program that is running, or if you want to get started, what you want to achieve as a first step, you want to achieve adoption and engagement. You want your team to buy into that. Again, going back to our activity measurements, like how many people are involved in the program? How many salespeople were we able to activate as marketers? How many accounts were we able to cover? So we want to make sure that we show the agility and activity pillar. From there, we want to show engagement. We want to show that our program created more engagement than before. And that's one of the main drivers, because we see engagement as a leading indicator to business outcomes, as we just saw in the equation that Deanna showed. And then the sales acceleration will get there. And do we expect to show sales acceleration in a few weeks? Probably not. But what we can show in a few weeks is structure. Look at how the vision of the ideal state is going to look like. What are the steps to get there? What are some, again, leading indicator that this is going to work for 5 accounts, 6 accounts, 10 accounts, whatever makes sense for your business. That's how you get started. And if you're a company like Kelly asked about, how do you do that in such a huge company like Cisco? You start with what can work. Right? You need to break down the organization into smaller chunks and see where can you make an impact right away, who will be the laggards or the late adopters, who will be the early adopters that can work with you really quickly. And tactically, to that question, we can look at templatizing, we can look at automation, personalization at scale, doing things that will allow it's an agility enablement, right? If we have automation, it means that the end user marketer can get to market more quickly.
And the use of AI, which I know that we are and have been in collaboration with Infinite Edge, testing and leveraging a ton of AI tools in the content production and development phase, so that we're able to get campaigns like we thought of this webinar 3 weeks ago, and here we are, right? So we can get content and programs into market really, really quickly. And then the other thing in these large organizations is having centers of excellence, and you maybe still have your large campaign teams, but those campaign teams structure the campaigns in a way that a core small SWAT team assigned to an account or a segment or a set of accounts can take those and create their own campaigns within that framework with agile tools and agile frameworks to be able to get those campaigns out. So, you still in a corporate environment are going to take 6 months to create your go-to-market plays for the next, set of cycles, but then there's all these small sub cycles that run within that are really about that notion of keeping your buyers engaged. And we're going to have a whole session on that with Adi around the engagement cycles. I think at the end of September with our demand gen team as well, who are on the call today. Great.
Awesome.
All right. Any more questions? All right.
Awesome. Sounds like a good time for a sanity check. So some quick reminders when you're thinking about where to start with all of this. ABX, it's a team sport. So align your leadership and all your teachings around this alignment. It's a team sport. Lead with metrics, demonstrate progress with numbers, and then prove the model by doing your pilot test and then roll out your bigger campaign intentional.
Right. All right. Just a little bit more about Infinite Edge if people are curious about how to get some support and help.
Yeah. So this is kind of a quick view of some of the services that we provide. My recommendation, we are offering a free 30-minute assessment to help you get to know where to start. So you can get in touch through the link attached here or the QR code. And we'll come in and talk with you about your challenges and your goals and where you're at, and then help you build the recommended roadmap for how to get to where you want to be.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Adi and Deanna, for helping us get started on this journey of transformation together today. As I said at the beginning, this is the start of an ongoing dialogue that we are going to be having with our community and the ABX transformation community at large. We're all in this together. So our next session is in September 21st. Our head of performance marketing and head of account development, Linda Monaco and Helen O'Brien, are going to join Adi and I, and we're going to talk about how to drive some of those really significant engagement cycles to win Q4. We know everybody's had a tough year. We've got one more quarter to go for those of us on this calendar year. And so how to make it the best quarter possible, running some of these plays. Here again is a set of resources. If you click use the QR code to go to our Transform to ABX landing page, and there's a lot of articles in there and information about how to go deeper on a lot of this content. And you can also follow us on LinkedIn for more details about the webinar and to just stay in touch with us. And then here's more contact information for any of the three of us if you want to follow up afterwards, have a one-on-one conversation. We're more than happy to chat. Or if you have a story you want to share, please let us know and we'd be happy to host that here. So thank you for joining us today. Good luck on your journey. We hope to stay in touch and we look forward to continuing this conversation.